They called her stew poison the same week it made a barren woman conceive. In Umadara, food was worship, but they decided hers was witchcraft. This was a town where cooking smoke always rose before cocks crowed, winding like prayer through dawn. Grandmothers swept clay courtyards with palm frond brooms, muttering secrets to the wind. Stories travelled faster than donkey carts, but none spread faster than the one about Isoma. She was impossible to ignore. Broad-shouldered, 4 deep scars carved across her cheeks like riverbeds of history. Her wrapper never rested, always rustling as she bent to ladle soup or raised a hand over a child's head in blessing. Her eyes held entire lifetimes, birth, betrayal, grief, stubborn hope. Esoma's stall was nothing more than crooked planks beneath a spreading mango tree on Ojoto Lane. No tile, no sign. 3 battered benches, a rusting zinc roof, 2 blackened pots that never cooled, but her food silenced gossip. It made arguing couples hold hands again. It let grieving fathers close their eyes and remember laughter. She didn't just feed them, she healed them. Students, traders, drivers, nurses, even barren women who swore her pepper soup could open their wombs. "Bring kindness next time, not money," she would say, pressing calloused palms to theirs. She was widowed young. Her 2 sons lived in the city with their uncle, no one close enough to call her love anymore. The town was her family, but even family can learn to bite. They watched her line grow so long it blocked other vendors. They whispered when the council gave her the school lunch contract instead of Mujifadetke, with glossy signs and pounding music. They fell silent when Isoma's name vanished from the welfare list. Because in Umadara, when a woman becomes too loved, she becomes too dangerous.
Before continuing this exciting story, if you believe betrayal has a price, hit that like button now and subscribe for more haunting African stories that reveal the truth behind envy, curses, and redemption. Turn on notifications so you never miss the next tale that chills you to the bone and opens your eyes. Let's continue.
Exisama kept cooking even as her water drum leaked and flies circled only her stall. Every dawn she swept with bitter leaves, whispering old protective prayers, but the wind seemed to mock her, mispronouncing her name. She felt it in her bones. Her fight wasn't against hunger, but silence. She stirred her pot slowly, whispering, "God, remember me, don't let my name become a curse." But heaven stayed quiet. The second market day was chaos. By 5 a.m., her firewood crackled, sending peppery smoke through Ojoto Lane. By 6:30, the street was drenched in her cooking scent. By 7, the line curled to the palm wine shed. A teacher begged her to keep fish for break time. A pregnant woman, crying softly, clutched her belly and swore only Isoma's okra stayed down. She pressed her palm to each bowl before handing it over, sealing a silent blessing. Across the street, Mama Fadeke watched from behind her empty table. Her girls yawned. Her big cooler sat untouched. By 10 a.m. she snapped. She stood, adjusted her wrapper and whistled sharply. 4 market women shut their stalls and followed her. They disappeared behind tinted glass. By sundown, the rumor spread like fire. Isoma is using juju. No stew makes barren women give birth without something inside it. Her pot is black from secrets. That night, 7 women gathered behind Mama Zaina's shed. They didn't gossip. They judged. "She's stealing our customers," hissed Mama Fadike. "No husband to keep her humble," added Mama Risi. "And she prays over the food," snapped Alhasha Salmat. Their plan was quiet, sharp. Isoma had to go. Within days, Isoma's world soured like spoiled milk. Her water went missing each morning. Firewood snapped in her hands. Salt in her fingers crumbled into gritty sand. Her okra soup soured before noon. The teacher she fed fell sick and accused her of poison. Isoma said nothing. She swept her stall in silence, whispering old prayers. She kept cooking. Even when the children who once ran to her pot now turned away. Even when she heard them mutter, "Avoid her." Even when her fingers burned on the stirring spoon. The light in her eyes faded. That was exactly what they wanted. The market that once sang with her laughter turned silent. Charcoal smoke hung heavy, tasting of betrayal. That morning, hawkers barked prices, hens squawked, metal trays clanged, but Isoma felt dread in her bones. Her hands shook as she sprinkled pepper. She tasted the stew. It was bitter. She frowned, opened her salt jar. Grey ash met her eyes, her heart thumped wildly. She stumbled outside, gasping for air, and there she saw her. Across the road, an old woman in white, barefoot, scarf loose, back bent, eyes wide and unblinking. She raised one finger at Esma, then turned and melted into the crowd. That afternoon, Esma scrubbed a black stain on her pot that wouldn't fade. She heard footsteps. Mama Zaina walked by without a word. "Mama Zaina," Esma called, voice shaking. "You didn't see me today?" Mama Zaina turned, arms folded. "Still talking, after everything? Carry your charm away before it's too late." Esoma dropped her sponge. She rose slowly, soot and water on her fingers. "Charm, you think I fed this town for 10 years so you could call me witch?" She turned in a slow circle. "Let the ground swallow me today if I've ever used anything but pepper and prayer," but the ground stayed still. Faces watched her, hard as carved wood. Only Bisola blinked away a tear, but looked down without a word. The market smelled of sweat, charcoal and sour distrust. Isoma arrived before dawn, her wrapper damp from the night's dew. She set her pot down with a heavy thud, breath shaky. She stacked the damp firewood, fingers trembling, muttering a prayer she barely believed anymore. Let them eat in peace. The wood spat black smoke, refusing to catch properly. She fanned it harder, coughing as the bitter fumes bit her eyes. By 6 a.m., the street smelled of wet ash instead of her usual spicy promise. Women gathered nearby, stealing glances at her but turning away before meeting her eyes. Children who once called her auntie tugged at their mother's wrappers to avoid her. She stirred anyway. The stew bubbled weakly, smell acrid. She scraped at the thick residue on the pot's sides, frustration curling her lip. She tasted it, spat it out. God help me. Across the road, Mama Fadeke's stall was booming. Her girls danced, trays clanged, customers cheered. Ms. Fadeke's voice carried clear over the market. "No poison here, only clean hands." Laughter exploded like firecrackers. Esma winced, lowering her head. She ladled stew for an old man who kept his eyes on the ground. He handed her coins on the edge of the stall, not touching her fingers, then left without speaking. The sun climbed, making the air heavy and sticky. Sweat glued her wrapper to her spine. She wiped her brow with her wrist, leaving a black streak of soot. God, please, help me. But the only answer was the wind rattling empty baskets, carrying whispers she couldn't silence. That night, the moon looked sharp as a blade over Umudara. 7 women sat behind Mama Zaina's cocoa shed in a tight circle around a smoking lantern. Mama Fadeke's eyes glittered, mouth set hard. "It's her or us." Mama Risi fanned herself slowly, pretending calm. "She's cursed. Look how they line up for her like she's special." Al-Husha Salmat sniffed, folding her arms tight. "A woman without a husband shouldn't have that kind of power." Mama Zaina watched the dirt between her feet. "People are talking. We're losing everything." Shady, the youngest, shifted on her stool. "She fed my son when I had nothing." Mama Fadike snapped her head around, eyes flashing. "And now she steals from your future. Don't be stupid." The wind rattled old palm fronds, blowing smoke into their faces. They coughed but didn't move away. They leaned in closer, voices dropping to low conspiracies. "Break her spirit. Steal her water. Tell them she uses charm." Shady bit her lip hard, tasting blood, but she didn't argue. When they finally stood, the ground was cold and damp under bare feet. They didn't say goodbye. They walked away one by one, shadows swallowed by the night. Behind them, the wind rustled dry leaves like it was applauding. Far away, Ezoma lay awake in her crooked shelter, listening to the wind howl and knowing it carried her name like a warning. Dawn broke with cruel light, washing Ojokop Lane in harsh yellow. Mist clung low, muffling sounds like a shroud. Esma arrived early, determined despite the dread grinding in her chest. She bent to stack her firewood. It snapped in her hands, dry but brittle. She stared at the splintered pieces, heart thumping. She picked them up anyway, refusing to let them see her falter. When she lit them, smoke rolled out black and choking. She fanned until her arms burned, eyes stinging from the fumes. By 7 a.m., the market buzzed to life. Women huddled in tight circles, glancing her way before leaning to whisper. She felt their silence pressing on her like a weight. She stirred her pot, forcing herself to watch as the broth turned pale and sour. She dipped a spoon to taste it. She spat it onto the dirt, gagging. She scraped the pot's bottom, heat blistering her fingers. Across the road, Mama Fadike's stall roared with noise and laughter. "Add more meat! This stew is sweet!" Isoma wiped sweat from her brow with a sooty sleeve. She waved at an old customer who once praised her cooking. They turned away deliberately. Her arm fell to her side, fingers curling. Her pot gurgled once before going silent, steam dissipating like a lost prayer. Flies landed eagerly at the rim. She swatted them away, tears pricking. She watched the teacher she once fed walk past with a fresh bowl of someone else's stew, refusing to look at her. Angry voice cracking. "You forget so fast," she whispered. But no one answered. No one even paused. She felt her hands tremble on the ladle. "God, where are you?" But the wind only blew back laughter from across the street. Anxious buzzed with false laughter and clattering trays. Isoma arrived early, balancing the heavy pot on her head, shoulders slumped with exhaustion. When she set it down, the dull thud felt like surrender. She wiped her brow with shaking fingers, struck a match. The fire sputtered, coughing dark smoke that wrapped around her like an accusation. She fanned it harder, blinking away tears from the fumes. By 6 a.m., the street filled with people, not one stopping at her stall. "Mama says she'll curse us." She heard them clearly, each word like a slap. She ladled stew anyway, watching it bubble half-heartedly. The smell was sharp, almost burnt. She scraped at the sides, frustration pressing hot behind her eyes. Across the road, Mama Fadeke's stall was a festival of noise. "Fresh stew here. Add more meat." Mama Fadeke laughed and waved her spoon high. "No poison here. Only clean hands." Laughter rolled like thunder. Isoma's jaw trembled. She lowered her gaze to the blackened pot. She tried to catch the eye of an old regular. He looked away deliberately. A mother dragged her son quickly past, hissing for him not to look. She closed her eyes, pressing the ladle against the rim. She forced her voice steady. "God, don't forget me." But the wind rattled empty buckets and carried only cruel giggles back to her ears. By midday, heat hung heavy over the market like judgment. Isoma hunched over her pot, stirring slowly, sweat sliding down her spine. The stew hissed, sending up a foul, sour steam that made her stomach twist. She hesitated, then tasted it. She spat it onto the dirt, coughing, her eyes blurred with tears. She wiped them roughly, glaring into the pot. Floating there was shredded calabash skin. Who did this?" Her voice cracked. The market fell quiet around her. Then whispers spread like a brush fire. "Charm? Witch? Juju woman?" She grabbed the pot, screaming, "I didn't put this here! I didn't!" She slammed it onto the ground. Stew splashed over her feet, hot mud soaking her hem. People recoiled, forming a circle at a safe distance. One man spat in the dirt without looking at her. A mother turned her child away, eyes narrowed in fear. "She's lost her mind." Isoma fell to her knees in the splattered stew, hands digging into the wet dirt. "I fed you, I healed you, I gave you everything." But no one moved. They watched her sob, faces closed, eyes cold. The wind picked up, blowing her hair across her wet cheeks, rattling the metal trays of other vendors. Flies settled greedily on the abandoned pot. When she looked up, they were already turning away, steps crunching in the dust as they left her behind. That night the moon was a pale, sharp sliver in the sky. 7 women gathered behind Mama Zaina's cocoa shed, huddled close around a flickering lantern. Mama Fadike sat forward, eyes hard. "She won't leave on her own." Mama Risi fanned herself slowly. "She's too proud, she thinks she's better than us." Alhaja Salmat clicked her tongue sharply. "Feeding barren women like she's some priestess. Enough." Mama Zaina didn't lift her eyes, voice low. "People are talking. We're losing everything." Shady twisted her fingers in her wrapper, looking away. "I heard her crying today. She sounded broken." Mama Fadike's head snapped to glare at her. "Tears don't matter. She's destroying us." Wind rattled the tin roof, sending a shiver through the circle. They huddled tighter, dropping their voices to vicious whispers. "Break her spirit. Steal her water. Tell everyone she uses charm." Shady bit her lip hard enough to taste blood but didn't speak. They stood slowly, feet scraping the packed dirt. No one said goodbye. They left one by one, shadows swallowed by the restless wind. Far away, in her small shelter, Isoma lay awake, eyes wide. listening to the wind as it scraped her name across the walls of the night. She curled tighter under her wrapper, breathing ragged, knowing somehow the real storm hadn't even begun yet. The next market day dawned under a sky the colour of old bruises. Isoma arrived before the cockcrow, wrapper heavy with dew. She set her pot down with a dull thud, breath misting in the cold air. She stacked the firewood with shaking fingers. "Let them eat in peace," she whispered. But the wood refused her prayer. Smoke billowed thick and black, choking her. She fanned until her arms burned. It hissed, crackled, and finally caught, a small, angry flame. By 6:30, the street smelled of wet ash instead of pepper and onions. Women arrived in clusters, eyes sliding over her stall like she wasn't there. Children watched her with wide, worried eyes, clutching their mother's hands tighter. She scraped her pot clean, trying to scrub away the bitter smell of betrayal. Across the road, Mama Fedeki's stall was alive with laughter. Her girls danced, ladles clanged, customers cheered. Mama Fedeki stood tall, voice cutting through the morning air. "No poison here, only clean hands." Laughter cracked like a week. The sun rose pale and sharp as a knife. Isoma swept her stall with an old palm frond, trying to look busy, trying not to cry. 3 men in crisp uniforms walked down Ojoto Lane. Their boots shone like judgment. They carried black plastic bags that swung like threats. They called themselves health officers. They didn't smile. Isoma straightened slowly, wiping her hands on her wrapper. "Good morning." They ignored her. One jerked his chin. "Search everything." They moved like soldiers. They tore open her cooler, dumping dried fish onto the dirt. They upended her buckets, water splashing uselessly onto the ground. They knocked over her stool, sending her old spoon skittering. She scrambled to grab it. "Please, be careful." They shoved her aside. One man lifted her big blackened pot. He reached inside with a gloved hand. When he pulled back, he was holding a wet bundle wrapped in torn nylon. "What's this? Charm?" Isoma lunged forward, tears springing instantly. "Don't touch that. It's my locust bean from yesterday." They ignored her. Faces in the crowd twisted with disgust. Phones appeared. Someone shrieked, "Ill. She's been feeding us jazz." The elders were summoned. They spoke quietly among themselves without looking at her. She knelt, wrapper filthy, tears streaking ash on her cheeks. "Please, I'm innocent. I only know cooking. I only know prayer." One elder finally exhaled. "Isoma, you are banned from this market. Indefinitely," she screamed, a sound that cracked her chest. No one flinched. By evening her stall was torn down. Her pot rolled into the gutter. No one helped her gather what was left. Not even the mothers she had once fed for free. The days after her ban felt like a funeral that refused to end. Isama woke before dawn as she always had, but there was nowhere to go. Her fingers twitched for the spoon, the scrape of the pot. Instead, she sat on the low bench behind her house, watching the sun crawl up slow and accusing. Neighbours avoided her eyes. The woman who once borrowed salt now shut her door tight when Isama passed. The market was done with her. Her stall had been ripped away, leaving only blackened earth like an old scar. She cooked small meals beneath a crooked canopy nailed together by 2 teenage boys who felt sorry for her. The fire wouldn't burn evenly. The pot stayed cold in places, but she cooked anyway. Sometimes an old woman took a bowl, chewing without meeting her gaze. She'd leave quickly, not saying thanks. Isoma wiped her hands on her wrapper, fingers shaking. At night, she lay on her mat, staring at the cracked ceiling. God, am I a curse? Silence pressed on her like a heavy blanket. When her sons called from the city, she forced cheer into her voice. Pray for me. Lagos is loud. She didn't tell them about the laughter that followed her in the street, or the children who mimicked her screaming. She kept it behind her teeth like spoiled food. The wind rattled her patched roof at night. She listened, eyes wide. Some nights, she thought she heard her own name spoken in the wind like a warning. Other nights, there was only silence. But silence was worse. It felt like agreement. One afternoon, when the sun lay heavy and cruel on rooftops, Isoma sat outside her crooked shelter. Her pot simmered weakly over low coals. Her head sagged, eyes blurred with exhaustion. Footsteps crunched the dirt. She didn't look up until she saw worn sandals stop in front of her. Baba Sefa, the old firewood seller, stood there chewing bitter cola. He didn't speak at first. He just dropped a bundle of firewood at her feet. Baba. He turned away immediately. Take. No pay. He limped off before she could thank him. She stared at the wood until tears blurred her vision. That night she tried to light it. Her fingers trembled so badly she dropped the match twice. When it finally caught, the flame was pale, dying in smoke. She fanned desperately, cough tearing at her throat. Smoke filled the shelter, burning her eyes. She struck another match. Again, kerosene dripped onto the dirt, soaking her hem. She dropped the match. Her pot stayed cold. She stared at it, chest heaving. She let herself sink onto the dirt floor, fingers curling into the ground. For the first time since they turned on her, she let herself sob. It wasn't quiet. It was ragged, body-breaking. She bent over the empty pot, wailing into the hands that once fed a town. The wind carried her voice through the village, but no one came. No one called her name to comfort her. When the tears stopped, even the crickets were silent. She wiped her nose on her wrapper. I am still here, but she wasn't sure she believed it. 2 mornings later, the sky was dry and pale. Isoma sat on her bench, staring at the pot as though daring it to vanish. No wind. No laughter, just the creak of old roofs in the sun. Footsteps crunched. She didn't look up until she heard someone clear their throat. Isoma. She flinched. Shady stood there, one of the 7 who had plotted her ruin. Shady's eyes were watery, face drawn tight. She held a small bag of rice in both hands. I heard what happened. Isoma didn't answer. She stared flatly, unmoving. Shady swallowed. Some of them, they went too far. Maybe we can talk to the elders. Isoma's lip twitched. She didn't move. Her fingers tapped once on the pot rim. Talk. Shady flinched. Please. I'm sorry. Silence spread between them like a stain. Isoma's eyes filled slowly. She let it happen. She nodded once. Tell them I forgive them. Shady blinked. You do? Isoma's voice cracked, but her eyes went hard. But tell them this too. She sat up straighter, voice rising. I fed this town with love. I gave you everything. And you spat in my pot. Her voice trembled. When your own hunger comes, may your tongues remember me. Shady looked at the rice bag in her hands. She set it on the ground carefully. Without another word, she backed away and turned, hurrying down the lane. The wind picked up at last, sweeping dust over the small pile of firewood Baba Sefa had left her. Isoma stared at the rice bag sitting like an insult. She didn't move to pick it up. She turned back to her cold pot, staring into its blackened depths, as if it still held a future she could no longer see. If this heart-wrenching emotional story has touched something deep in you, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to my channel, and share your thoughts in the comments.